Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Ticket. My name is Ruth O'Brien, Senior Director of AI Support at Intercom, and I'm joined today by my boss, Declan Ivory, VP of Support at Intercom, to talk about the second part of our AI agent blueprint. Hi, Declan, and welcome to The Ticket.
Hi, Ruth. Really delighted to be here today to discuss our second part of the blueprint. Really looking forward to an engaging and informative conversation that hopefully our listeners will appreciate and get some value from.
Yourself and Bobby spoke about the first part of the blueprint a few weeks ago on this podcast. But for anybody who hasn't heard that episode, could you tell us a little bit about what the blueprint is and then why we split it into two parts?
Blueprint is really kind of a set of learnings and experience that we've gathered ourselves in terms of our own deployment of our AI agent Finn, but also the experiences of all of our customers who are also deploying Finn. Like when Finn became available as an AI agent, there was no blueprint, there was no kind of best practice, no kind of playbook to follow. So to some extent, we've had to develop that over a period of time in collaboration and in partnership with our customers. And this blueprint is effectively the output from that. So it's very much a blueprint that's not grounded in theory, but grounded in practice. So it's really around the practical learnings of implementing an AI agent. And from that point of view, hopefully it's hugely beneficial for anyone who's on that journey of deploying an AI agent. And you've asked, like, why do we split it into two? I think really good reason for that. Like what we called part one was launch it. And that was really around people who were maybe putting their toe in the water with AI technology and really understanding how it can impact from a customer service point of view. So it's really trying to give very clear set of activities that you need to undertake when you're initially deploying an AI agent and getting it kind of up and running for your organization. So that's part one of the blueprint, which, as you said, we published a couple of weeks back. And now part two is all about scaling it. So again, it's really targeted at customers and prospects who are already on the journey of deploying an AI agent and want to understand how they can scale it more quickly, more effectively, and really deliver like long-term tangible benefits from deploying AI technology. So it's moving well beyond the launch phase into how do you make it a sustainable business advantage for you in terms of how you deploy and use AI across your business. And again, very much based on the practicalities and experiences that ourselves and our customers have encountered over the last 2.5 years as we've deployed Finn.
Yeah, you and I both remember what it was like to launch and scale Finn without a blueprint. We were the first ones to do it ourselves. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, I mean, at one level, it's really exciting. The access to AI agent technology built on generative AI was really exciting. And I think we were the first customer support organization in the world to deploy Finn and also deploy a generative AI agent. So from that point of view, really exciting to be at the cutting edge of technology, but also somewhat daunting in that, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't have a blueprint, we didn't have best practice, we didn't have a playbook. To some extent, we were making things up as we went along. But again, we had to be very intentional around that. We had to put a lot of thought into what we were trying to achieve, what was the best way of approaching it, what considerations did we need to have, in terms of optimizing what we would do, in terms of this, delivering benefit back to the business and displaying that we were delivering benefit back to the business. So a lot of things that we had to kind of create from scratch. We learned a lot ourselves. We learned a lot collaborating with our customers through that phase as well. So yeah, exciting and somewhat daunting. As I mentioned before, when you run customer support for a company that is building a customer support platform and a leading AI agent technology, there's a certain obligation to really demonstrate that you can use that technology to best effect to really deliver exceptional customer experiences. So that was also kind of weighing heavily on our mind as well. We wanted to make sure that we could demonstrate that this approach in terms of using AI for customer service was transformational and was actually delivering a much better customer experience and better business outcomes, both for our customers and for ourselves as well. So from that point of view, yeah, a certain amount of pressure, but certainly we fronted into it. And 2.5 years in, I think have reached a really strong position in terms of that transformation journey.
Absolutely. I remember when you were asking me to take the lead on launching and then scaling this thing, right? I was like, okay, how do I do this? And are there any guides that I can follow? And there absolutely wasn't. So like you said, we were making it up as we went along, but I'm delighted now that we're able to take those learnings and teach our customers about how to do this more effectively for their business so they can actually launch and scale really quickly now, which is super cool.
I think one of the key things about it is, this is a point in time view of a blueprint and how to go about optimizing an AI agent from a launch perspective and a scale up perspective. But we very much want to make this document a living document. We will learn more ourselves. Our customers will teach us as well around, things that they're doing, how they're optimizing their AI agent technology and how they're delivering benefits back to the business. And we want to make sure that we're constantly updating and upgrading the information so that we are absolutely representing best practice at any point in time. So this is very much a living blueprint. It's not a static point in time, document. We will augment it and update it on a regular basis and make sure that it's reflecting best practice at any point in time.
Absolutely. I mean, so much new functionality comes out that can be used around AI. And at Intercom, we're launching new features for Finn like every day nearly. So obviously, like what stands today in terms of how to do all of this, building a strategy and an operation around this even in a few weeks' time, I would say has some changes that we need to add into the blueprint. So any listeners and watchers of the blueprint, please keep an eye on it, and we will be updating it very, very regularly. But to hone in on something that I think actually should never change about implementing an AI agent is making sure that you're actually focusing on the customer experience as well as all the other pieces around efficiency and cost saving. So could you just speak to us a little bit about that, Declan, and why we have that outlined in the blueprint?
Yeah, so on the scale apart, I think there's three big components that we focus on. And the first is the customer experience. So I'll talk a little bit about that first. Ultimately, as I say, you can use AI to transform the customer engagement and hopefully transform the customer experience. And that's what we really focused on ourselves when we went down this kind of journey with Finn. And I know a lot of our customers are going about it in the same way. As they scale out, they're really kind of paranoid about, are we actually delivering a really good customer experience? Are we thinking intentionally about the journey that the customer's on when there's an AI agent in the flow or in the customer journey? And you're very kind of, intentionally designing that interface with the customer, and you're monitoring over time. Like, so what worked well 2 years ago today actually doesn't look like it was kind of state of the art. And we've refined and tuned our kind of conversation journey all the time. And for that reason, we've implemented a role called conversation designer. And I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit later. But that kind of whole focus on ensuring that we think about the customer journey, we actually walk in the shoes of the customer, and actually what does it look like when you introduce an AI agent into the customer engagement piece. And that's been really interesting as well, because it's not just about the technology, it's also about human behavior. And that conversation design piece is really, really focused on how do humans interact differently with this technology? How do we need to take account of that? What's their expectation? Like if an AI agent resolves their issue, great. If it doesn't resolve their issue, to some extent, you've built in a little bit more friction, and you want to make sure then that afterwards you're really optimizing the customer experience to make sure that the overall journey is really, really exceptional for the customer, and they're getting value out of all steps in the journey. That's been a really kind of strong focus for us from a customer experience point of view. And like, you need to think differently about the metrics. So a good example is CSAT was always considered a really strong metric from a customer experience point of view. And yet to some extent it was always flawed because it was based on a survey. It was based on, typically a pretty low response rate from customers. And now all of a sudden, using AI, you can actually interpret the customer experience for every single conversation that you have. And again, that's game changing as well, because in an AI agent world, you can then actually be very, very focused on what is the actual customer experience that we're delivering at any point in time. How well have we hit our own benchmark for what we consider to be exceptional customer experience? And where do we need to drive changes and improvements to really make sure that we're tuning the experience all the time? And also reacting to increased customer expectations, because that's the reality as well. Customers have ever increasing expectations, particularly if they believe they're dealing with an AI agent and they have very high expectation of what that agent will do on their behalf. It's not just answering informational questions, it's making the response very personalized. It's also taking action on behalf of the customer and actually completing the task that the customer wanted. So again, you have to be very intentional about designing that whole flow, designing, the steps that you undertake, making sure you got seamless handoffs, making sure that you're applying quality control all the time around how the conversation is actually working in reality when it's out in the wild with your customers. It's not a kind of a one and done thing. You've got to constantly tune and adjust and, take feedback from customers, both direct and inferred, as I say, through things like our customer experience score, which is allowing us a totally different lens on how we think about customer experience.
And I'm always saying I'm trying to still myth bust this idea that folks still think this idea of like chatbots are going to be worse for customer experience. But we're not dealing with old chatbots anymore. We're dealing with an AI agent. It's a totally different world that we're living in right now. And it's not all about cost saving. It's not all about headcount cutting. Like, yes, you can use AI to do that if that's the direction your business wants to go in. But all around this blueprint we're speaking about, that's that's not the only thing AI is for. It can actually enhance the customer experience and make things a lot better for your customers and for your team.
Absolutely. Like, in very simple terms, an AI agent is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's available multilingual capability. And all of a sudden, that's new capabilities that you get out of the box with an AI agent. And particularly as you scale it up, you can apply it across all of your business. And that's a big kind of game changer from a customer experience point of view. Like, many organizations have struggled delivering 24/7 support, have struggled delivering multilingual support. And, this technology enables that. And that's a much better customer experience, quite apart from any kind of cost benefits or cost savings that you might have as you scale out your support operation. It's actually delivering very tangible, real experience improvements to customers right out of the box.
Okay, let's talk about the humans of the support
Yeah.
organization. So we've done a lot ourselves on our own team around our org design. We have different roles. We're kind of shaped a bit differently than we were a few years ago. We try and share those learnings in the blueprint. Can you speak a little bit about the organizational design chapter that we have?
Yeah, so I think organization design is a really important part of the scale it story, because at the end of the day, it is a big change management project as much as it is a technology deployment project when you think about scaling an AI agent. And I think the organizations that really take a step back and think about the change management aspects are the ones that are really most successful in driving adoption of AI and really making it impactful for their business. But that does have implications for how you structure your roles and responsibilities. And at a very simple level, even if you're starting small and beginning to scale up, you want to make sure you're assigning key responsibilities, including ownership of the AI performance. So someone's got to own, is AI or your Fin in our case actually performing at the levels that you want it to perform at. And that's thinking about things like involvement rate in conversations, resolution rate, quality of resolution, like things like the customer experience score that I mentioned. Someone has to absolutely own those metrics and drive them. And that's typically someone who is termed an AI ops leader or AI ops manager. They may take it on initially as a part-time job, as you know yourself. Then they may actually take it on as a kind of full-time job. And then even below that, there are some specialist roles that we think will develop over time. Like conversation designer is one that I mentioned. Again, many organizations will have that as a part-time role initially, but it may become a full-time role given how critical it is in terms of the success of an AI agent. We talk about knowledge management and amping up a knowledge manager role. In fact, I think we should be calling it knowledge strategist, not just knowledge manager. I think they're really involved all the way from talking to engineering teams, through product marketing, through sales enablement, all the way through to actually ingesting it into Fin and allowing that content and knowledge to answer questions on behalf of customers and complete actions on behalf of customers. So those roles have to evolve either on a part-time basis or as organizations grow, they may become full-time roles as well. So it's really important as you think about those kind of roles and responsibilities. But even the kind of the human support team that's there as well, you got to think about what's the difference for them in an AI first world. The type of work coming through them is going to be quite different than they're traditionally used to. It's going to be more complex. It's going to be the activities that require in-depth troubleshooting, product knowledge, ownership, etc., strong empathy with customers. So they have to operate in a different way in terms of when they engage with customers. And again, you got to train your team for that. In our case, we reworked our job families within support. So we have a lot more focus on technical capability, on troubleshooting capability. We want to make sure we're reskilling the team over time to handle those more complex questions. And again, you got to be intentional about that. That's part of the change management approach that I mentioned. You also want that team to help optimize AI as well as the specialist roles that I mentioned. Everyone that is interfacing with customers and looking at conversations can spot opportunities to improve and optimize AI as well. So in our case, they may see where Fin may not have answered a question quite as well as we wanted to. They can make a suggestion for a content improvement, etc. So you really want to make sure across your human support team, you're generating that culture of continuous improvement. We want everyone to contribute to AI delivering better on behalf of the customer, on behalf of the organization. And again, that requires a little bit of a cultural change across the organization. And again, it's really worth putting that effort in as part of the change management program as you scale out. your use of an AI agent, and really getting everyone bought into, they have a role to play in improving how AI is delivering on behalf of customers. So change management is really, really important. Getting dedicated responsibilities assigned early on. They may become kind of independent roles eventually, but someone has to take responsibility for AI is running. Someone's got to take responsibility for conversation design. Someone's got to take responsibility for knowledge management or knowledge strategy.
Absolutely. And in terms of the economics, which you've already touched on a little bit, but we go into a lot more in the blueprint, something you and I are always discussing, if you have this excellent resolution rate. So at the moment, our automation rate, so total volume, right, that we're getting over 75% of that is being resolved by Fin now. But that didn't mean that we just needed 75% less people on our team. And I love in our economics section how we flesh that out a bit more and speak about how you need to think differently. So number one, it's not all about cost. Cost is an element to it, but then like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the other things that you need to be thinking about. I'd love to hear your summary of this chapter.
Yeah. How do I summarize that chapter
Yeah, I know there's a lot.
in a short time? But I think the big point is that when you deploy an AI agent, you're breaking the linearity in terms of growth of your business or growth of your customer support demand with growth of your human team. I think that's the big difference here. Like, you can scale your support operation radically differently using AI agents versus only being able to use humans to actually interface with customers and resolve problems. So that's the first thing. It's a totally different model as you're thinking about from a scalability point of view. And to the point you're making, if you're kind of using an AI agent to resolve in a high quality way anything up to 75 or 80% of your workload, it means then you can think differently about how you use your humans in terms of what work is coming through to them. So I say you can scale much more effectively, but also you can open up opportunities for your human support team to move beyond just being reactive with customers. So you can actually think differently about, okay, yes, I know this customer is presenting a particular problem to me today, but what's the next problem I'm going to encounter? How can I actually think a little bit more proactively around supporting that customer and actually getting them to, avoid some problems into the future? So you're adding in a much more high value interaction with the customer. Like, in our terms, we call it consultative support. So a whole series of activities where we want to move beyond just the issue that the customer has today and actually think about how can we add more value to the customer by enabling to use our own products and services more deeply and avoid kind of potential issues into the future. So they're getting more value out of the investment that they're making in Intercom in our case. So, and in Fin. So from that point of view, like, it's really, really critical to think beyond just, yes, you can scale differently, but you can also add a lot more value. So the way, a lot of support leaders are thinking about it, historically, they were viewed as a cost center for many businesses. Now they can actually be viewed as a value driver for the business, because if you can correlate this kind of consultative approach that you have with your customers, you can actually directly correlate it to, in some cases, acquisition or getting customers to use new features and capabilities that generate revenue. You can relate it to kind of churn and loyalty for the customer, and you can relate it to long-term value for the customer as well. So all of a sudden, the metrics that you present back to your executive team are radically different. It's not just about the cost per interaction. It's actually more about the value that you're driving from a customer perspective. And I say that can be direct revenues that you're contributing to, or it can be revenues that you're influencing in terms of loyalty for the customer or long-term value. And if you can really understand the motions or the activities that you can undertake for those customers, you can then correlate quite quickly what the value is that you're driving for the business. And that's a totally different mindset from an economics point of view. And you get into a totally different conversation with your CFO then, in terms of investment in support. You're looking at it from a radically different lens. So from that point of view, like, freeing up a lot of bandwidth on the team is actually allowing you to do a lot of the value add work that most support organizations have only been able to aspire to over a long period of time. And now all of a sudden they can actually genuinely think about adding a lot more value to that customer interaction. So it does radically change the whole approach around economics. That's been a very kind of shortcut of the economic section. There's a lot more in it. There's a lot more nuance that you can look at in terms of thinking about the cost of delivering support over time and the impact it might have on your business, particularly as you're scaling. Things like cost avoidance. So it's not just about cost cutting. You can avoid having to invest, as I say, because you're scaling in a different way. So a whole different set of metrics that all of a sudden become important from a customer support point of view, that you have to think differently about than the more traditional metrics of, cost per interaction or cost per ticket, cost per case. Yeah.
Well, you and I could probably speak about this stuff for 5, 6 hours more, I would say.
Terrific.
But we'll wrap up here and I'll ask our listeners to go over to fin.ai/blueprint to check out the details of what Declan and I have been speaking about. And I'll thank everybody for listening and thank Declan for joining us.
Thanks, Ruth. Really great conversation.